So for years on this channel, I've edited in Premiere Pro. It only uses a small percentage of the GPU, and it's only for specific effects and tasks. About 6 months back, I finally moved over to DaVinci Resolve Studio, and I discovered that not only was it using 100% of my GPU, but after doing some digging around, I discovered that it would use 100% of as many GPUs as you could throw at it. And that gave me an idea. Inside me, there's two wolves. It's really uncomfortable. Part of me will always get excited by systems that look like this, but another part of me likes a more grown-up, clean aesthetic, which is why I fell in love with the North case from Fractal Design. It's probably my favorite case of all time. This is my current editing rig for scale. It's massive, and it's extremely heavy, but it has to be, because the motherboard in here is an XL ATX. That's nearly as wide as eATX, but it's a full inch taller. It's a true workstation build, so it's got pretty impressive specs, but it's starting to show its age a little bit at 3.5 years, and it's having difficulty with some of my more complex timelines, especially stuff that utilize a lot of the Neural Engine in Resolve. Render times especially have gotten out of hand. The premise today is simple. Can I build a machine on a standard ATX platform in a more compact case that will substantially outperform my aging workstation? So I'm shopping around looking for some parts for a cleaner, more understated build, and ASUS offers to send out some of the stuff from their ProArt line. I didn't even know this existed. Whenever I think ASUS, my brain automatically goes to ROG or Strix. The aesthetic here on the ProArt stuff is exactly what I was looking for. The GPUs for this build are the ProArt RTX 4080s in a slimline form factor. These aren't as tall as most cards, so they play nicer in an air-cooled build. Initially, I of course wanted dual 4090s for this build, but they don't make the ProArt 4090 because they're tougher to cool. Everybody I consulted about this agreed that it'd be mandatory to put them on water if I were running multiples in the system. I want to keep things simple for the initial concept because recording this right now, I have no idea how effective multiple GPUs are even going to be in Resolve. One wild card moving from a 3090 to 4080s is that I'm dropping my VRAM from 24 gig to 16. I've avoided doing that until now, partially because of the VRAM and partially because it's the last of the EVGA cards. It's the end of an era. Back when we used SLI for gaming, the VRAM didn't stack with multiple cards, but I have no idea what that looks like in Resolve, so we could come away with 16 gig, or we could come away with 32, which would be amazing. The motherboard to handle all this is the ProArt Z790 Creator Wi-Fi. This is currently the top end of their ProArt line. We've got two reinforced PCIe 5.0 slots, and the top one has something I wish I saw a lot more often. This is what they call their Q release button, and you just press this to release the top card instead of having to poke a little screwdriver down to hit the unlock tabs. The spacing on the slots is ideal for running dual cards, but there's something else to consider using a desktop system over a workstation, and that's total PCIe lanes. Populating both these slots is going to cause them to run at X8 instead of X16, and this is going to affect storage too. For that, my friends over at Crucial hooked me up with a T500 Pro 2TB Gen 4 drive and a T700 Pro 4TB Gen 5 drive. Gen 5 would normally give a pretty shocking boost to large sequential reads and writes, but not in this case because this motherboard only supports Gen 4 M.2. Additionally, one of these drives will go straight to the CPU. The other one's going to have to go through the chipset, which may slow things down. For memory, we're using the Crucial Pro Series DDR5 6000. This board tops out at 128 gigs, so we're going to try 4 sticks at 24 Ps for a total of 96. If I can't keep it stable with all 4 slots populated, I do have a backup plan. CPU for the build is the Intel i9-13900KF. I pulled this out of my gaming rig because I have different plans for that machine, and I didn't see the point in shelling for a 14900K when I had this chip as extra inventory. This is 24 cores and 32 threads with really high single core clock speeds, so this should work great. For cooling, we've got the ROG Ryogen 3 360 in the blackout version with the Noctua fans, and I picked up a handful of Be Quiet Silent Wings Pro 4 for the rest of the case. We're gonna need some serious power, so I went with the Thor 1200 watt Platinum 2, and my friends at Cable Mod came through with a gorgeous set of custom cables in black and gold to really set this off. All right, let's go. So yeah, I'm understandably very happy with how everything came together. I would have liked to be able to go tubes down on the AIO, but it's a really tight squeeze in there. Being a 360, that radiator was only fitting in the front, so we have the three 120mm Noctua fans in there as intake pushing through the rack. In the roof, we've got two 140mm Silent Wings Pro 4 fans and a 120mm as exhaust. My version of the Northcase has the perforated metal side panel versus the tempered glass. Originally, I ordered this version just because I liked the look, but it comes in really clutch for cooling here. We'll talk temps in a sec. For performance, I chose a pretty dense 4K edit with loads of effects and grades and transitions that runs 14 minutes and 27 seconds. I've had similar files go into the 30 to 40 minute range to fully render out, but this was a more recent project where I still had access to the talking head footage. I normally delete all this after I publish a video. So on my normal editing rig, this rendered out in 11 minutes and 21 seconds with no errors. Over on this new machine, the Dual 4080s cooked this in 6 minutes and 14 seconds. That's huge. Better still, it is distributing the VRAM usage between both cards, so it is letting me access all 32 gigs of combined VRAM. I was curious to know how much of a difference the VRAM made in this scenario, so I tried out a few different configs both in the new rig and my older machine. A single 4080 with 16 gig of VRAM in the new rig finished out at 13 minutes and 31 seconds. That's well over twice as long as the dual cards, and the VRAM was maxed out the entire way. Plugging the 3090 with 24 gigs into the new machine saw 9 minutes and 34 seconds, and the VRAM was never completely maxed out. It was very close, but not completely. We're also seeing a decent increase over the older machine running the same GPU, so this newer CPU and faster DDR5 memory are making a difference here. Putting a single 4080 in the old rendering machine saw the worst performance of the day, taking 16 minutes and 24 seconds. So based on this, a single 3090 is a better choice in this use case than a single 4080. So where does that leave a 4090, which also has 24 gigs of VRAM? I finally had to send the Matrix 4090 back to ASUS, so before I packed it up, I put it in this new rig and rendered the same file out at 9 minutes and 2 seconds. This is the most beastly 4090 on the market too, and the dual 4080 config still clears it by just over 33%. So for video editing and Resolve, it stacks up with the dual ProArt 4080s winning by a landslide, followed by the 4090 and then the 3090, which was shockingly close, and a single 4080 firmly in last place. If you have the budget and you're doing professional work where time is money, this dual ProArt 4080 setup is killer without having to go all the way up to a super expensive workstation build. And render times aren't the only area where I saw a big performance boost. Just scrubbing the timeline, especially over challenging effects and transitions, is buttery smooth on this ProArt rig. The final polish edit pass on my projects on my old rendering machine make for some really long and really frustrating days as that rig starts to buckle under the weight of all the color grades, the transitions, the effects, the picture-in-picture, and the motion graphics. Even Resolve's ability to cache difficult portions of the timeline to improve playback is not effective at all on that older rig. The usage on the GPU stays at like 100% just to background cache the timeline, so whatever I'm trying to do in the moment is slowed considerably and the whole thing feels really unstable. It's a night and day difference on this ProArt build. Even notoriously challenging effects aren't an issue at all, and I don't even need to use background caching. Naturally, I thought temps were going to be an issue, but they're totally fine. I even cut the measurement on the custom 24-pin cable too close, forcing me to have the PSU drawing air from right under the second GPU as opposed to from outside the case. Still not an issue. The mesh version of this Northcase includes a bracket where you can set up dual 140mm fans to pull fresh air in from outside the case and feed it right to the GPUs. I thought it would be an automatic that I had to use this, but I don't. For a real torture test, I left this machine trying to render out a huge animation in Blender for over 2.5 hours, and here's the max temps. The GPUs were getting hammered too. So with temps like that, it has to sound like a jet engine when it's getting worked, right? Wrong. The fans on this thing barely even ever spool up. It is dead quiet regardless of how hard it's working. Half the time, the only reason I even know it's on is the pump noise from the AIO. That's it. So mission accomplished, and honestly way better than I expected. The performance is insane. This little build makes for a great hybrid rig where you can leverage one GPU while you're gaming and then leverage the second GPU while you're doing professional editing or 3D work. I fully expected the performance to be crazy, but the temps and the noise level absolutely exceeded my expectations. It's an absolute monster hiding in a tasteful little compact ATX case. It's the ultimate sleeper build. Big thanks to Fractal Design, Cable Mod, and Crucial, and a massive thanks to ASUS for helping this all come together. This rig is going to make it a lot easier for me to get videos out much faster to you guys this year. That's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I will catch you all in the next one. Stay up.